Thank you, everybody, and thank you for respecting recess. Gary, you were answering the question from Councillor Bennett, so if you wouldn't mind just carrying on with that answer, please.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, on the electrical improvements, as I said earlier, we've got nearly not far off 9,000 properties have received the new fire-rated fuse boards, and as part of that process of replacement, we're also dealing with any defects that are identified under the electrical safety test. That includes where people are potentially overloading circuits, at Christmas time when trees are going up or whatever they use, the daisy chaining power sockets off of adapters. And what we're doing is, if there's a need to increase the number of sockets in the room, it's relatively cheap while we're there, and we're doing that. And you're removing the risk, which, as I say, was fitting smoke and heat detectors. The fuses or the switches, fuses in the fuse boards are so quick now; they're millisecond reactions to a fault. So generally, and a byproduct to that, we're just doing a bit of work, myself and Liam, is that works we've undertaken has resulted in around about 12, nearly 1,300 less repairs a year. And then we're just trying to track back that now. How many of those related to electrical breakdowns in the previous year and other breakdowns, which is proving we're estimating around about 900 electrical repair requests have not been made this year because of the works program, the planned works program we've implemented. So again, our target is to remove the risk and ensure that residents and tenants are safe.
Thank you, Liam. You want to come in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say something in support of what Gary was saying as well. It's sort of and what we're also starting to find a trend of is that because of having good stock there, when we do get a report, it's not as costly or long-term repair. They're a quick in and out, fix the issue, so it's less cost. Residents are getting things turned around a lot quicker. So we're finding that there's less complaints around the electrical side of it.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you to Liam, Gary, for the detailed reports and the work that your teams undertake on behalf of our residents in Hillingdon. To take our thanks back from this committee to your teams, because we can see the difference. And if we went back to the previous report, we can also see some of the voids and the state they are in when you actually get in there, which can't be very nice for some of your teams to deal with as well. You deal with them swiftly, you turn things around for the council, and you keep the council where it is, giving and putting residents first. So thank you, and thank you for turning up this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Committee. Have a good Easter.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 7, the electrical vehicle infrastructure. This is the 12-month update, and we have Poonam Patak with us to give us that update. So it's over to you, Poonam.
Thank you, Chair. I have drafted a short report along with draft EV policy and strategy. I'm sure members had a chance to go through the strategy. Just to summarize what we have in the strategy is we looked at the environmental commitment contribution that Hillingdon has pledged, where we fit in to aim to get into to get to net zero, what Council has committed to, and the best installation and maintenance and operation solution that will help the Hillingdon, most economically advantageous solutions as well, investigate and confirm the best route to the market, and establish the Council's short, medium and long-term aims. So it's all been added into our strategy. The way we did was our forecast was based on some of the report we have looked at from the International Council on the Clean Transport Forecast. So that gives what type of destination charging we should be looking at by 2030 and by 2035. That's the basic for our current aim, what we'd like to achieve by 2030. And we have also will be doing based on the demand-led, so that will be adopted highway or other council-owned property, council-owned workplace or car parks, council-owned public car parks, or council-owned maintenance depot or the fleet. So we'll be looking at all those 4 scenarios for our EV rollout. We also investigated the route to market, looked at a few different models where we looked at fully funded council ownership and private concession, fully funded by private, and we looked at share ownership where the council will fund and private will fund as well. So looking at all 3 options, we found the preferred option to be shared ownership, where we will have more control on the revenue and where we would dictate the supplier what we would like to do rather than they dictating us. So that's found to be a better option in terms of what we like to achieve. We have also added the council's service requirement from the service level to design, construction, plan maintenance, reactive maintenance, operation and marketing, how we would like to roll out on that as well. So our delivery plan summarizes a short term where we will be dealing with our legacy issues where we have most of the EV units which are not in working conditions. Along with that, we will also look at the medium term where we will try to achieve our target, and the longer term will also be in parallel when we are delivering medium term. So in order to do this, move this forward, we have already done the tendering process. The tender has already gone out. I have also lined up, given the procurement timeline here, just one correction on the procurement timeline. Tender process in page 72, that 19th April has been moved to 27th of April, so we have given 1 week extension to the bidders so they can give us the bid back by 27th. So all other timelines are all fine. So we are aiming for June cabinet for approval for the tender, the competent supplier, and along with that we are aiming also to move forward our strategy. So I'm more than happy to take anything from the committee if they have anything they have seen in the strategy which we need to look at, or any views you have on the strategy.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Poonam. I had a couple of questions. Maybe I'll ask a couple and then we can circle around to other councillors. First one was just around, relative to other local authorities, have we been a bit slow with this? And if so, is that more of a sort of risk aversion to sort of technology advancing at quite a pace? I ask because I don't have an electric vehicle, but I went to my grandparents, they live in Hammersmith and Fulham. I parked up last weekend and most of the lighting columns had an electric vehicle charging point already on them. And here we are kind of just signing off your strategy and going to Cabinet with a proposal. If you could just talk through sort of where we sit relative to other local authorities and why.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Yeah, you're right. We haven't got as many EV charging units in the borough that compared to the inner London borough. One of the reasons being is the demand as well, not only the EV units, because we have most people have a crossovers vehicle driveway where people can park and charge their vehicle. Looking at the number we haven't got even that many numbers, less than 50 in terms of request on-street parking. So we are not sort of overwhelmed by the people requesting for on-street parking, but our aim is to go more of the destination parking where people can charge quickly and then go off, rather than having to charge overnight on street. So it will be all demand-led in future, but we are lucky in our borough because we are outer London borough and we have more off-street parking than inner London boroughs.
Councillor Cord, and I'll come to Councillor Nelson.
Poonam, I have a couple of questions for you. One, I think the 2020 or 21 there was a statement that public consultation will take place regarding this. Has anything happened in terms of public consultation with regards to electric vehicles? And another thing, I think it slipped my mind. If you respond to that, it might come back to me, and I'll.
No, Councillor, there was no public consultation. However, we are looking at the trends of EV uptake within Hillingdon, and then we will be looking at longer term plan based on that. But there was no consultation, so yeah.
Let's move to Councillor Nelson. It might come back.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question here is we're 7 years away from the government mandate when the sales of cars, petrol and diesel cars, will be off the road. As Hillingdon Council have no function on street EV, which you just explained a bit on that. Can you tell us, are we on track to have the EV in place as per the short, medium and long-term vision?
Once we are successful with this tendering process, we'll be in track, because obviously, as Councillor Bennett has highlighted, we haven't got many EV units as the inner London Borough. If you go to Westminster or Hammersmith, you will see quite a few more than outer London boroughs. So what we have said in our policy or the strategy, we are aiming to achieve that, because we don't want to set the target which we can't achieve. So the one we have here, we are in the target if we are successful with this tender process.
I have a question, and I'll come back to you, Councillor Bennett. Obviously, we reviewed this as a select committee 12 months ago. So my question is, why are we only just tendering?
Thank you, Chair. We did go out on tender last year. And it wasn't successful bid because commercially it wasn't good for the council. So we had to go back into the starting again with the strategy, because I understand the committee did recommended that time for the EV infrastructure to be rolled out. So we had to go back and start from the strategy upward and then go into tender documentation. So that's what we did in the right way, rather than going into tendering process and then look into strategy. So there was a bit delay because we wanted to focus on strategy first, and from there we wanted to have our vision to go into the tendering process.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman. So there was just a couple of questions. One was around hydrogen vehicles. So obviously the technology is evolving very quickly. Do we see there being quite a big risk in kind of facilitating electric vehicle charging, and then actually in 10 years' time hydrogen-powered vehicles has kind of become the norm and overtaken it?
Yes, Councillor Bennett, obviously the technology evolves all the time, but what we are trying to do is looking at the uptake of EV at this stage and then forecasting it for next 5 years. So that is our aim. Definitely there will be new fuel consumption vehicle will come up. Maybe this will be redundant in future, but we need to look at the current demand and move ourselves to achieve that. So hopefully we'll get to what we need to get to by 2030. Things might change by then, so we'll have to take that as we go along.
Thank you. And just the second question was, in terms of providing this to residents on street in car parks, do we see it as something that we would provide at cost, or something that we would seek to earn revenue from? It might be more of a question for resident services, to be fair, but has any thought been given to that at this stage?
At this stage, we're thinking of 50-50, sort of the investment. So the private the contractor put in 50 and we put in 50. So that's still to be established where that 50% is going to come from and how we're going to roll it out. But there will be concession as well, when also we'll be bidding for any government grant comes up. So we are still already looking at levy funding being announced for next 3 years. They have 3 billion been announced by DFT, so we will be looking at those our share of how much we can bid for those levy fundings as well. So everything will be looked at as we roll this EV forward.
Councillor Kaur, I saw that smile as you've remembered.
I did, yes. Thank you, Chair. I just want to know if you're also, probably when you're strategizing, the load on electric grid, because everybody's concerned about it, and they say when they can't power houses, how would these infrastructure then be procured and then delivered to the public when there's also concerns about the grid not being able to cope up? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kaur. Yeah, that's something, once we have the contract on board, we need to have that communication with our DNO supplies. We have UKPN and SSE supplying within the borough. That is definitely, that's the correct point. So whether they can give us those feed or not, that's something will have to be investigated by the contractor. So they will be the key to take that forward with the supplier. Whether we can deliver those, but that's normal for any boroughs. Whether I haven't seen anywhere where SSE hasn't provided so far, but we'll have to wait and see what SSE and UKPN would say.
Councillor Bennett, you have one more?
Promise, my last one, Chairman. It's kind of a real change of life moving to electric vehicles and how you fuel them, in the sense of, petrol stations could in 20 years be a thing of the past. You don't have petrol on the street outside somebody's house now to top it up. Is there any sort of long-term view that perhaps the council may look to take over redundant petrol stations and provide some sort of mass rapid charging facility, or do we see it very much as our own car parks and on street, and if people privately want to do it on their driveway, that's what they do?
That's a really good point, Councillor Bennett. This is what we are thinking of longer term plan. Medium term, we will be doing more of the rapid in car park scenarios and stuff like that. That is the longer term plan. Beyond by 2030, we will know better where exactly this market will go. Even the petrol station, they are doing the similar what you just said. They will be doing ultra fast, where you can charge in 10 or half an hour. So these things are coming up. Maybe sort of, the private sector are gearing up for those as well. So it might sort of put pressure off from the council as well for having to do that for the resident. But we'll have to take it as we go along in terms of the demand where it goes to.
Thank you. Councillor Gaelic?
The question I have, you mentioned that the ownership will be 50-50 supplier and the council. Would there be the same with the sharing of profits? And second question, would the contract be exclusively with one supplier, or you envisage more than one? And what would be the duration of the contract?
Thank you, Councillor. In terms of the profit share, it's going to be the same as what if we put in 50%, then we will like to have a profit 50%. That means they will be deducting the maintenance and the cost of electricity they will have to pay. And whatever is the profit, then we will have that profit share of 50%. And our model also says, if it's not 50, what if it's 25%? In our tender documentation, we have tried to look at all the scenarios where the council will benefit more, whether it's 50% or 25% or 0%. So we have all the model in our tender process. In terms of tender, the contract is gone out for 5 + 5 years. So that is our term of the contract. And it will be the competitive tender. So we'll do the evaluation whether it's one or two, but likelihood is going to be one contractor on board, because going through the council procurement process.
Just picking up on Councillor Bennett's previous question, there are some petrol companies that have already started to put in these charging garages, shall we say. They've stripped the pumps out and literally just made them fast charge. So they are already starting to gear that way, looking at those petrol stations that aren't profitable, but know that they can get a profit if they go down the charging route for some areas. Any other questions for Poonam on this? Councillor Bennett, you did say your last one, but okay.
Promise this is the last one, Chairman. Thank you. In terms of, it might be more of a question for planning. I sit on major planning. I also live on a relatively new private estate that was built that has got a shockingly poor lack of provision for electric vehicles. Is there anything we can do for private developments and housing that come forward for planning applications over the next few years to increase the provision of electric vehicle charging spaces, so that rather than a sort of token handful, you know, actually we're talking half of the parking spaces have got charging points, with the view that that kind of reduces the burden on the local authority to have to provide as much as maybe we would need to?
The standard, as you know, is 20% only at the moment, so maybe the planning colleagues can advise on whether there is a need for increasing it to 50%, but currently that's, I think the TfL mayors is 20% as well, so we are going with the London wide sort of percentage at this stage.
I'm sure as we get towards 2030, things are going to start rapidly changing within planning areas and what they want to see for EVs, etc. Any further questions, Poonam, on this subject? No? Well, thank you, Poonam, for that one. Moving on to item 8, which is our review. Now, I'm conscious that Councillor Chapman isn't here and Councillor Money isn't here, both of whom have been with this committee from the start, heard witness statements, etc. So, with committee's approval, I would just like to defer this to the next meeting. The only thing I would ask from Poonam, we keep hearing that the council are looking at new technology for pothole repairs, etc., etc., but the committee still haven't received any detail on what that technology looks like, who we've been to yet. I do know when I went out on site to see the rhino patcher, one of the companies we have looked at is JCB, I know that for a fact. But if you could supply to this committee via Steve, obviously as our clerk, what technology this committee can look at, that officers have been looking at and been going to see and maybe moving forward on, because then we would be able to incorporate that within our report to Cabinet. Because obviously our report to Cabinet is going to contain about rhino patches, but we want to also be part of the process to push the new technology. Because at the end of the day, what we don't want are roads similar to the council's area that I have to travel into every single day when I go to work, and I know exactly when I've left Hillingdon. Let's put it that way. So, you know, we don't want to get to that state. So if you can supply that to Steve, it would be very helpful to us, so that we can see that.
Yeah. Machine is not up to the speed because it's very old. We need to phase it out. So we tried a couple of new machines similar to that, as well as the different technology. So we are recommending the best solution for the council where we can achieve the long-term goal, what we have. And I understand in the last time as well, when Chris O'Hara did come, he did mention about the warm mix material. We are trialling up warm mix, which reduces the carbon and stuff like that. So we are always watch out and talking to our colleagues and counterparts in other boroughs as well, and attending all the London-wide meetings. So whatever we are sort of getting closer to innovation, and we are sort of trialling it in Hillingdon, but not everything is feasible for us as well. So whatever is feasible for us, that's what we will recommend. And one of the recommendation, I'll pass it on to Steve to take it forward.
Thank you. That would be useful. And you're quite right about the rhino patches being old, because that was one of the first pieces of kit that I purchased on behalf of the council when I was cabinet member many years ago. And unfortunately, the gentleman at the depot that services that for us is retiring this month, which means
he's the one who managed to fix it as well.
I know.
He
Yes, he did. And I remember going out the very first time we got it and him being very excited about it, and he stayed with it ever since. So our committee in agreement that we just move this forward to our next meeting so that Councillor Chapman, Councillor Money can take part in shaping the report, and also we will get a list of the new technology the council have been looking at, which we can incorporate into a report to Cabinet. Agreed? Okay, thank you, committee. Moving on, and thank you, Poonam. If you wish to leave now, you're free to go, so thank you. Yes, happy Easter to you as well. Enjoy the four-day weekend. Item number 9, the Cabinet Forward Plan. I don't intend to go through every single page because we've had this for some time now to look through. Are there any areas that anybody wants to make a comment on that is coming up on the forward plan? If it does state that it is a private report, then we can't discuss it here because remember we are in a part 1. So any of the public ones, does anybody want to mention them to know more information for Steve to obtain for us? Or are we happy with what we've seen coming forward on the forward plan? Happy? Agreed? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item 10, which is our work programme. You will see the last municipal year's meeting was this evening, the 6th of April. Obviously, we will be going to the Council's AGM when committees are formed and drawn up. I'm hoping that we can stay as a committee, but obviously that's not down to me. That's down to party leaders who decide who are going to be on committees. But I think if we come to it, we will feed into Steve. So if there are any things that you do want to feed in for the report, then please just email through to Steve. Copy me into the email, because Steve can start getting the basis of our report ready to move forward to the relevant cabinet meeting. But you will see that yes, this is our last meeting of this committee, and I'd like to thank all of you for being part of this committee. We've looked at many areas. We've had good debate, good discussion, and I think we will get a good review report out for Cabinet. I think it's one that touches every single resident, even if you don't drive, is the highways and pavement review that we've been doing. Because if you're a cyclist, you're on the roads. If you're a pedestrian, you're on the pavements. And if you don't drive, you're probably on a bus or somebody else's car. So I think it is important. If you do have things that you would like to be considered for the report, please email them to Steve. Copy me in. And we try and get something together. Steve, can I request that you contact Councillor Chapman and Councillor Money and explain to them that we did move this on, and are there any thoughts or comments they wish to make towards a report to Cabinet, and then we see where we go once this committee is reconvened after the AGM. There is one member of this committee I know will definitely not be on here, and that's Councillor Ahmed Walana, who will be taking the large chair in the council chamber. So thank you, Councillor Ahmed Walana, for your input over the past year, and I wish you all the best for your mayoral year when you take over in about 4 weeks' time, is it? About that, isn't it? Yeah, okay. But thank you all. I think we've had good debate, and we've got some good reports that we've listened to. So I wish you all a very happy Easter. And whatever you're getting up to, if you're with family or whatever, just enjoy it. Because although we've only got 4 days, those 4 days will go like that, and no sooner as those 4 days gone, we're all back to normal. So take care, and I wish you a happy Easter. And I'll close the meeting.